how the measures that we have in C-59 will speed up the construction of new homes, not only in Davenport, but across the country.
Okay, well, thank you, Ms. Jarvis. Thank you, Julie. Daniel's children asked me where I live, so I can tell them I live in Toronto, and Julie, who just asked a question, her riding is right next door to mine. And I absolutely agree with your judgment about the priorities of your constituents. My constituents would say the same thing. It is housing, housing, housing. And that's one of the reasons that anyone around this table who purports to care about Canadians needs to act with alacrity to pass this legislation. In addition to the essential 2-teen clean tax credits, which actually are of particular value to Alberta, as I heard in Calgary 6 days ago. The fall economic statement included significant measures, and Bill C-59 will pass them into law to get more homes built faster. So here are some of the things that we're doing. The Housing Accelerator Fund, $4 billion. That is money to do deals with municipalities across the country. It's going to help build 100,000 homes. As you know very well, Toronto has a deal under that fund. Removing the GST from new rental housing, including in this bill cooperative housing corporations. So important. It's going to get more homes built faster. And I think all of us can support co-ops and what important permanently affordable housing they create and what wonderful communities they create as well. Investments in low-cost financing for rental construction. That is going to help build 30,000 more homes per year. And the apartment construction loan program, to which the fall economic statement added $15 billion, will help build another 30,000 homes.
So coming out of a global pandemic and the subsequent inflation, there are a lot of Canadians who are going to be renewing their mortgages, and rightly so. They're worried about the interest rates and whether they're going to be able to afford to pay their mortgage at the higher interest rates when they renew. I know that we've introduced a mortgage charter in the fall economic statement. Can you explain in plain language to the person in my riding of Davenport who might be about to renew their mortgage, how is this charter going to help Canadians ensure that they could renew their mortgage in an affordable way?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to start where you started, Julie, because Canadians are really concerned about inflation and concerned about interest rates. And that's why I started with the good news that now for 2 months in a row, January and February, inflation has been within the Bank of Canada's target range. That is so important because interest rates are really high. And as inflation stabilizes in the Bank of Canada's target range, that can create conditions that make it possible for rates to come down. And that's why I emphasize that, because I know so many people are anxious. The mortgage charter is in place to give people some certainty, some relief, to know what they can count on when they talk to their financial institution about renewing their mortgage. Some of the things that people need to know is you can talk to your financial institution about a commitment that you do not need to requalify if you are an insured mortgage holder under the insured minimum qualifying rate. So you can switch lenders. That gives you more options and more opportunities. Fees and costs that would otherwise be charged for relief measures, mortgage providers have to waive those. And I really urge Canadians, have those conversations with your financial institutions. The mortgage charter requires them to be supportive of the needs of people who have their mortgages and who are challenged in this high interest rate environment.
Time.
And now to MP Saint-Marie, please.
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. Madam Minister, Mr. Forbes, good morning, and thank you for being here. I'm going to start with one request and two questions I'm going to put to you right away. First of all, your request. Your department has given a table to the committee with the 83 billion for the green economy by programme. So we've got estimates by programme. I'd like to ask whether your department can transfer to us the estimates for these programmes by sector of activity, the sectors that are going to receive this. And then a second question right off the bat. This includes cities and municipalities and their groups. And there's a question of renewing the tax on gas. And there's no conditions because that would really slow down the process. So how would you respond to that issue? And then a second question refers to the cultural sector, which is very worried. The Canadian Council of Arts seems to be having to refuse nearly all of the projects. The festivals, the artists, music festivals, museums are really up in the air, wondering whether these programmes are going to be renewed and adjusted to inflation. So what would be your response to them today?
Merci.
Thank you very much, Mr. Saint-Marie. Thank you, Gabrielle, for these questions. I'll try to answer these. First of all, we'd be happy to do that follow-up in terms of our investments in the green economy. I think it wasn't so much of a question, but thank you for underlining the investments that we're doing in this area. It's extremely important to make these investments, and that's why it's important to have a plan for the climate. If we don't have a robust plan, it will be impossible for Canada and for Quebec to actually attract investment. And we are bringing in that type of investment, so thank you for emphasising that. And Bill C-59 is important because thanks to our investment tax credits, we'll be able to do this, and they're contained in this bill. Coming on to the two questions. First of all, on the municipalities aspect. That's a file that my colleague, Minister Fraser, is tracking closely, and also Minister Rodriguez is dealing with this for Quebec. We're aware of the fact that the date of 31st of March is coming up very quickly, but we have confidence that we'll be able to reach an agreement with Quebec. And then on the cultural sector, thank you also for that question. That opens a door to me to congratulate the creators in Quebec and Monia Chokri personally, because as you know very well, she won the award for the best foreign film at the Caesars. And I would advise all MPs to go and see this movie. It was astonishing work, and it talks about the importance of the cultural industry in Quebec and the significant support that we're giving to the cultural industry. This is an excellent film. It's an award-winning film, and it was created partially thanks to the support from Telefilm Canada. And recently, Pascal Saint-Onge, my colleague, announced renewal of the funding for Telefilm Canada, 100 million over 2 years. And there's another 100 to come. We understand the importance of culture for Canada and for Quebec. And to be quite frank, I am very, very proud of the creators coming out of Quebec. Thank you very much for that answer, and we'll await your recent or the upcoming announcements eagerly because people are very concerned. I'd also like to know whether you're going to announce the reform of EI in your next budget. That's been promised since 2015. And in the meantime, what are you saying to the forestry workers who were not able to work last summer and accumulate their hours for EI because of the many forest fires raging? Thank you for that question as well. The forestry industry is one of the main industries in Quebec and in Canada. We'll always be there for this industry and in particular for the forestry sector workers. As I hope you will understand, today I cannot make announcements related to the budget as such. But before rounding off, I'd like to thank you. I see that you like me, are wearing the colours of yellow and blue. And thank you also for your support for everything we're doing together to support the courageous people of the Ukraine. Thank you. We are certainly fully supporting them. Quebec and the National Assembly, there's consensus asking for a right to withdraw with full compensation for dental health insurance programs and possible medical insurance program. This was in Schedule G. Are you going to agree to their request? I have very good contacts and very good conversations, and I hope that they will agree with me when I say that I have a very good relationship with Éric Girard, the finance minister in Quebec. He's a very efficient counterpart. We have discussions on a very regular basis concerning on these questions related to healthcare. My colleague Mark Holland is working that particular file. We will continue to work on this in a collaborative way with the province of Quebec. At the end of the day, we have come up with a solution, for example, for daycares already. That was a good solution that worked for Quebec and for Canada. And I do hope and I have confidence that we will find a solution for these matters as well. Thank you very much for that, and thank you, Chair.
Now to MP Blakey.
Welcome back to committee, Minister. First of all, I'd like to echo the sense of urgency that Monsieur Saint-Marie was giving to the need for comprehensive employment insurance reform. There's a lot of things that need to change and have been promised to change for some time. One small cost item, but I think high impact, of course, is the question of double stacking maternity and regular benefits that the Social Services Tribunal at one point did recognize as an instance of gender discrimination in the employment insurance system that has a disproportionately negative effect on women. In C-59, there is a small proposal for employment insurance change. Those are the measures related to the placement or arrival of children, and I think overall those are good measures. I'm aware that there are folks who are concerned that Indigenous peoples were not consulted and that there are unique needs within Indigenous communities around the placement of their children, and of course a lot of very legitimate historical concern about government making decisions about the placement of children and how that gets arranged without Indigenous peoples themselves being in the driver's seat. So I'm wondering if the government is prepared to consult on these measures even as they implement them, in case there are other changes that should come in the future, in order to ensure that this new benefit under employment insurance is properly tailored to the needs of Indigenous communities as they take more control and ultimately all control, I hope, over their own children and where they end up when their parents aren't able to serve them in the ways that we would all hope.
Okay. Well, first of all, I hope you will not mind if I take a moment to say, Daniel, Mr. Blakey, Daniel, I think today is your last day, and I do really want to say how much I have not only enjoyed but benefited from working with you from your work on this committee and your work in Parliament. We have not always agreed on everything. But the things I was thinking today about this meeting of the committee, and I was thinking the things I really admire about your work are I always know that you are led by your values. When you make a point, when you push for something, it's because you really believe in it and you think it's good for your constituents and the people of Canada. I also appreciate that when we don't have exactly the same opinion, you're always prepared to listen carefully and with an open mind to another